South Carolina is currently ranked number 16 in the AP and taking on Clemson, who's number 12 in the AP. We're recording this on Monday night, and of course, the college football playoff rankings come out on Tuesday. But the spread in this game is Clemson minus 2.5. The over/under is 49.5.
Yeah, big matchup, the biggest matchup from these two teams since like 2013. I think it was 6-10 matchup then, and they're both sitting in playoff contention. They're right on that fringe. The rankings haven't come out for this week yet, so it'll be interesting to see where Clemson sits, where South Carolina sits. I think that one of these teams that wins this game could absolutely get in. It's a huge resume booster for South Carolina to win one on the road, for Clemson to then try to get that at-large spot should they not get to play in the ACC championship. So it's a game that is built on momentum. Right now, South Carolina, though, seems to be playing pretty unstoppable ball. I know that you're pretty high on them and the style of ball that they play.
Yeah, they play some pretty bruising football, as I've mentioned before. And, what South Carolina's been able to do, they've been definitely the hottest team in college football over the past month and a half, and some really big wins for them, of course, beating Vanderbilt and some of the other teams. In this game on the other side, I think the story is, what can Clemson do in their second SEC test this season, right? They're a much more improved team from that week 1 performance we saw against Georgia. And I don't know if Georgia's the same team for better or worse than from what we saw week 1 against them. But for Clemson, I really think about when it comes to what South Carolina is able to do well, it's their pass rush and getting pressure on, quarterbacks. Cade Klubnik, really the one game that he had a rougher game, still came out with a win, was against Pitt. And Pitt was able to sack him 4 times. I'm curious to think, what kind of pressure South Carolina can get on him, and how much of an impact will that have on the ACC quarterback right now?
Yeah. I mean, they're scoring points. Like they're point heavy team, if you take that Georgia game out of the conversation. But that's been coming against a pass rush that I don't think compares to South Carolina. I mean, you just look at their 2 best players in Kyle Kennard and Dillard Stewart. There's 18 sacks just between those 2 guys this season. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot for them to deal with, for Cade Klubnik to deal with. So, should he be having a rough day, they're going to have to maybe, use the ground, and that's tough against South Carolina too. Phil Maffa, a lot of seniority there, and they could go that route. I think that South Carolina's defense right now is just very, very tough to play against. Yep. And the only opportunity that teams really had in beating South Carolina was trying to get a couple turnovers. That, LSU, Alabama, it was the turnovers that, as of late, have not been an issue.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, early in the season we talked about it with the interceptions and the fumbles from the quarterback play, and also from other players on the team. That's not an issue now. Lenore Sellers is protecting the football. He's not giving it to the other team, and he's putting it in the pay dirt. He's getting touchdowns, right? Mm-hmm. A couple weeks ago, he had a 5-touchdown game. And so for South Carolina's defense, being able to stop that tough rushing attack, South Carolina's going to run down your throat. They're going to control the time of possession. We've seen it, and it reminds me a little bit of the LSU game when we're talking about it, because I feel like I'm holding Cade Klubnik to this Garrett Nussmeier regard right now, right? 29 touchdowns in the year. He's sitting at second in the ACC in touchdowns. I get that he hasn't played a defense like South Carolina. I'm not saying he hasn't played an SEC defense. He's not played a defense like South Carolina. But he's obviously proven that he's a good passer. Phil Maffa sitting at top 5 in the ACC rushing wise. And so we'll see what this test brings in terms of that offense for Clemson, who's trying to get into the SEC Big Ten Invitational, according to Davo, against this South Carolina defense and this offense from South Carolina as well.
Yeah, because the offense from South Carolina is good enough in its own regard. Like the defense is really the Hollywood all-star piece of South Carolina, but the offense is great as well. And right now, Clemson's run defense up, down. We saw them last week at Citadel. Citadel ran all over them. Stanford did the same thing. So you can run on Clemson. And, between the running back at South Carolina and Raheem Rocket Sanders or Lenore Sellers, like they're hard to bring down. Right now, Sellers has the 3rd most scrambles in college football. And it's usually coming as a result of him breaking a tackle. You get to the quarterback, turns into a 20-yard run. It's frustrating. It's frustrating because you think you have him and he gets out of it. Right now, like I love the brand of football South Carolina's playing. Right now, Lenore Sellers 5th highest QBR in road games in college football. So he's slowly making his way up the ranks of highly revered college quarterbacks. And to the casual fan, I think maybe it's flying under the radar. But what he's doing is what's put South Carolina in this position to where they maybe could make the playoffs.
It's definitely put them in a position where they can make the playoffs. Their resume is getting stronger and stronger with some wins over Missouri and other teams here. And, as a former new SEC podcast dog of the week, he's an absolute animal. What he's been able to do in terms of, like you mentioned, his QBR of the past couple of games makes it seem like he's going to continue to perform to that level. And so if both these quarterbacks perform at a high level, I think you're absolutely right. The main story is, what can the South Carolina defense do against this Clemson offense? Because I think we know what the South Carolina offense will be able to do. The defense, in terms of Thanksgiving, is the turkey and the ham. The offense is the sides. And right now it's mac and cheese. And so I don't see them missing in this one. I like South Carolina personally. What's your final prediction in this one?
I like South Carolina too. I think if Clemson fails to pass protect properly, South Carolina will be all over them. Unless they can get some turnovers off South Carolina, I think it's a game for them. Fun fact for those betting out there, South Carolina's 4-0 against the spread in road games this year. Even if I didn't know that stat, I like them regardless. I like South Carolina 27-24 on the road and starting to feel a little bit more likely to punch in their ticket.
Yeah.
Should some things happen.
Should some things happen, right? I like South Carolina 28-20. So close prediction to yours. I think that they take care of business here. I think that they kind of keep this offense at bay. I think, at the end, Clemson's able to get another touchdown and kind of get it close. They attempted onside, but it is recovered by South Carolina, and they find a way to win this one.